Atri, we are discussing a lot about technology, the impact of technology, how it is changing lives, and the way things are evolving now. All technocrats at some point in time believe that they need to get some opportunity to contribute, and people who contribute always believe that there is an opportunity of their knowledge to, particularly in terms of technology and the skills that they acquire over the years, to be used in multiple ways. Not everybody gets an opportunity, or not everybody is prepared to take those opportunities and do some amazing things. It's absolutely privileged for us to have Aarti joining us. Aarti, this has been an amazing. I got her introduced when she was leading Catalyst, and then we also came to know about her contribution not only in terms of the encouraging the girls in the right way, also in terms of contributing on the technology side, helping the system, helping them build a platform, growing that particular platform, and she has been part of this amazing journey. Aarti, thank you so much for taking out time and joining us today. We'd like to start by understanding what has been your journey.
Thanks, Charudatta. I mean, really privileged to be over here, and I was really humbled when you approached me to be part of this forum. I'm Aarti, and I have over 2 decades of experience across geographies, across domains, across different roles, right from starting from being a software engineer all the way working myself up to account manager and CXO as well. I've had the privilege of working both in corporate, social sectors, across product and service organizations, both in small companies and startups. I mean, big companies and startups as well. So it's been a variety and a very varied experience across everywhere. To start off, of course, I started my career at Persistent Systems, where I spent 14 years over there. And I spent time both in India and US leading large development and QA teams for basically Fortune 500 companies over there. It was an extremely exciting journey. I mean, I joined the company where we were just touching 200 strength, and we basically saw it grow all the way to an IPO a decade later. So it was an exciting journey to see the growth. And I learned the value of strong engineering and design over there, importance of basically how to adapt to different situations, take on different challenges, see the dot-com burst, the Y2K, the Wall Street crash, and multiple aspects. So the mindset for continuous growth and how to adapt and continue working flexibly on that is what I learned. After Persistent, I basically joined an India center of a US based telecom analytics startup, basically overseeing their operations and their engineering and all their aspects. And that was a different challenge and a different ball game in itself. I led that team through a successful merger, and stepping into the startup world actually not only made me lead with, I mean, basically saw it grow and basically navigate and the uncertainty over there, but also making sure that my team stays engaged and motivated through all that uncertainty aspect. So that was another different set of challenges and different learning aspects as part of it. As you mentioned, I mean, one of the most meaningful chapters in my journey was actually serving as the COO at Catalyst, a not for profit basically, which prepares young women for leadership. And I managed programs over there which impacted 750 students, 500 alumni. And I led their digitalization journey completely from taking all the processes online to also getting them prepared for moving the interventions online during the pandemic time. Uh, this experience deepened my commitment to long term impact, mentoring the next generation, and making sure that this stays as core part of my purpose throughout any of my engagements beyond that. Today, I'm back at Persistent. I'm back in US. I'm here as a customer success manager, basically handling multi-million dollar accounts and bringing towards diverse stakeholders to deliver business value. I basically thrive in roles which bring help me bring in together a corporate rigor and also a social impact. So that's where I find the maximum impact and value in what I can be able to give. Sometimes I actually joke saying that I've done so many roles and worn so many hats that I should probably just name my resume as professional multitasker or something of that sort. So, yeah. A little bit on the personal side, if I want to just cover, is I came from a family of doctors, and I was, of course, expected to be one of the doctors, which I decided to change my path. So I was the first in my family pretty much to pursue engineering and build a career in that field. I've lived across 3 continents. So I was My early childhood days I spent in Scotland, then, of course, India and US as well. And this has broadened my perspective and really deepened my love for travel and exploring different cultures. And meeting diverse people and understanding their beliefs and their viewpoints has helped me have a completely open mind of different types of value systems and what can happen. I mean, there's no right and wrong, it's different perspectives about things. I'm also passionate about art. You can see one of my artwork in the background. So I'm passionate about art and I enjoy engaging in it whenever I can. I serve as a board member for the Westminster Art Council in my local community. And that basically helps me stay connected to the creative world while also providing a way of giving back to the community through promotion of arts and culture. I'm extremely fortunate to have an entrepreneurial husband who has more confidence in myself than I have in myself sometimes. And his constant support has been a pillar throughout my journey. I mean, he's never questioned anything I wanted to do and always supported me in everything. And I have a young son who's currently in college, and watching him grow into a thoughtful and capable young adult has given us the best joy or the most immense joy that we have seen. I'm privileged to have loving parents who gave me the foundation to fly high, and of course incredibly supportive in-laws who encouraged every dream and anything that I want to take, right from the corporate to the social to traveling to everything. So yeah, I've been extremely privileged and happy to be able to be part of all of this.
Amazing. So professional multitasker. But when you talk about this task, I think that's the title I would give this particular part, Aarti, the professional multitasker. So this, while you
Thanks.
say make it so sound so simple, right? These different tasks come with their own challenges. How you have
Mhm.
managed to move across these challenges? What has been your mindset while approaching these different challenges?
So in terms of the different challenges, of course, as I said, one of the biggest thing actually which has helped me is keeping an open mind on everything, learning and adapting to whatever comes your way. So when, especially when you're in a professional work life, right? So not everything or not all 100% of the things are going to go, and it's going to be based on your choice. You're going to have to do a set of things that probably is the need of the hour. If you, for example, if you're working in a startup place, you're going to have to run operations from HR to legal to everything, even though probably your passion is engineering. If you are in a big company, yes, there are going to be certain types of work that you're going to have to do, which is needed by the client for them to be able to do business value. Try to find what you can learn out of every aspect there is, and that will give you the passion and the feeling to keep going. And of course, basically adapt to it. And of course, try to make sure that you also grow in the process. I think that is what helps me a lot. So, to be able to adapt to all these different challenges and take them up. Initially, every challenge does feel daunting. Uh, get good mentors, figure out how you're going to be able to navigate your way, talk to people, learn along the way, and basically go forward based on that.
Does the organizational culture play a huge role in this, the way you approach these challenges?
Absolutely. I mean, organizational culture, I think, is extremely important. And I have been extremely happy and privileged to be able to be part of good organizations. Persistent, of course, joined the company when it was 200. Everybody knew everybody's name. It was a very family oriented culture, very, very employee centric, making sure that employees could grow and understand what their pain points were, and making sure that there was a conducive environment for people for their professional development. So the first 14 years with Persistent was absolutely that path. And as you see, right, I started as a programmer, went to a tester, team lead, and when I left Persistent 14 years later, I was actually managing a team of 75 plus team members. So I did got a tremendous opportunity to grow over there. And if you have the willingness to grow, the willingness to learn, you will have plenty of opportunities being provided to you. Of course, as part of the next journey as well, it was a small company, but I did join over there. I mean, there was no constraints because I came from a services organization to a product organization. I came from a big company to a startup. That constraints were not placed on me. I was given the field to be able to explore and make my mistakes and figure out and make sure that I can learn things. I spent a good 4.5 years over there as well. Um, it was a very good learning experience. Again, very senior folks on that particular team, and as I said, I mean, we navigated a lot of challenges together, and to the extent that we got to a point of a good, successful merger, we were on the brinks of an excellent acquisition, and that's the point when I decided that I wanted to move out of there and move into something else. And the Catalyst you have been a part of. So Catalyst was an amazing, different journey, and I loved the aspect of everybody in an organization having a sole aim of just making sure on what is the best for the beneficiaries. Nobody is trying to play a competition against each other, but everybody's just sole purpose is to figure out what can we do to make sure that we can give more value and make it a better journey for the Catalyst team. Back again at Persistent, a very big organization now. It's amazing to see the growth from 1 billion to where we're going forward to try and track to 2 billion. Again, opportunities are plentiful. So I think the organizations do play a big role. And you thrive in places which basically people give you those opportunities and have your back when you need it.
The other aspect is also about preparedness or your willingness to that. I want to highlight one very specific question that I'm looking at. Currently, you said you had a 14 years stint, then 4.5, then Catalyst, and again over here, right? So there has been a very substantial period in each of the organization wherein you were able to contribute, the organization was also able to contribute to your journey. Now, when I look at the youngsters, the only contribution that really matters is the what's coming to the bank, right? All the other contributions have become secondary. So what would you
Mm-hmm.
advise these young professionals who are some point in time you feel that they are little too short sighted, or they want those opportunities fast, and if they are not coming their way, it's the next thing that they are looking up to.
I mean, absolutely. I have been, as you mentioned, very properly, I mean, correctly, is I value loyalty. And I think loyalty does have its long term, very good, strong benefits that probably sometimes we fail to see in the short term. And I mean, it's similar, right? If you talk about the stock market or anywhere, right? You have your long term benefits. If you're patient enough to wait through it, you're going to see tremendous good results out of it. So, in terms of the younger generation, I do feel that I do understand it's a rapidly changing world. Things are changing extremely fast right now. Technology is changing, everything is changing. And so, thinking maybe a standard or interview question we used to get, right? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? I understand maybe 10 years is much longer a vision and the world could have completely changed by then. But I think it's personally important to think about where do you see yourself 5 years from now. Okay. And where do you see 5 years from now is not tied to any specific technology. It's not tied to anything specific. It is tied to where your goals are and what you want to do. And I would not, just for loyalty's sake, I won't advocate the point that you should stay in an organization where you're completely unhappy and you're not getting the value and the work you should. But having a big paycheck should not be the sole reason why you leave an organization. I mean, it should be, I understand it's very, very lucrative when you see somebody giving you 20% hike, 50% hike. Okay. But does that also come along with having an organization where you can take up different opportunities, when you can learn more, the type of role that you're going to play, the mentorship or the type of people you're going to interact with? If you don't see value in that, then you should not be joining that organization in the first place. And I think that also comes to the point of making your good background homework before you join a place. Understand what they're offering. Don't just look at the salary slip for that respect.
Do you see the organizations also changing to cope up these expectations from youngsters?
Organizations, yes, they do need to cope up to a constantly changing workforce. You do see high attrition rates, high aspect, I mean, different people leaving the organization. But I also do see a lot of people, like, for example, in Persistent again, I do see a lot of people returning back to the organization primarily because of the way the culture and the way they make them feel as part of the organization. So while yes, companies, I won't deny that, have to cope up. They have to make sure that they meet market standards in terms of salaries to be able to get good talent. But in terms of retaining the good people and the good talent, is primarily also in terms of how they motivate and help creating that conducive atmosphere. As I said, I mean, I I mean, one of the things as a leader, right, or a manager of a team, my manager used to always tell me is like, your A bander is not the person who is the highly intelligent person or the person who can do the absolutely kick-ass coding or basically can give the best. Your A bander is the one who you can completely rely on and give them a task. And even if they don't know how to solve it, they'll figure out a way, they'll put in the hard work, they will solve the problem. And they have your back and they'll stay around with you, be loyal, and work with you, at least for some part of it. I mean, if it is a valid situation where they have a better opportunity, they have to go for higher education, you'll also understand as long as they've given in what they need to. But your A bander is that person. That it's not the person who is extremely highly intelligent and can do coding in 5 seconds versus 5 minutes.
Very interesting perspective on the way you look at team and how the teams are getting built. When you look at the youngsters now who want to come to the industry, right? How do they really need to prepare themselves in, because we discuss so much things about the challenges, the changes in technology, things that are happening around the world. So somewhere while there is a very big expectation, the ground reality is a little different. We are seeing
Mhm.
companies going in a different way, and on one side you would see certain people operating at a premium or want to be operating at a premium in when they want to build start their career. On the other side there is a very substantial population which is not even getting the right opportunity to begin with, right? In
Mhm.
this kind of a contrasting scenario, how do the students balance themselves and prepare for the corporate opportunities?
Okay. So, I mean, I think overall the world is changing fast. We've already talked about that, right? So, we had disruptions due to internet, we had disruptions due to big data, blockchain. Now we are seeing self-driving cars on the road where you don't even have a driver, to actually artificial intelligence that we see, right? And these changes are happening more frequent and very fast right now. So one thing is absolutely keep up. Make sure you keep learning, keep reading, keep upskilling yourself so that you don't become irrelevant. Okay, there are some skills that are transferable, which are sort of like your aspect of program management or organizational skills and overall managing and organizing and handling things. So those type of things are transferable, but the skill set of your technology and what tools you use is constantly changing. You need to keep upgrading yourself, and having trainability or readability or being able to education yourself is also an extremely important skill. So that is one part I would say. Secondly is, again, you can't avoid technology, so just learn to use it. Make sure that you can't ignore it, even if you are in a completely different field, right? If you're in a field of, even if it's an artist field, or even if it is a field which is not directly related to technology in any way, technology is everywhere. Be it the corner kirana shop to anywhere, there is technology everywhere. So adopt it, embrace it, learn it. And the third most important thing which I feel right now, which was different when I graduated, is computer science was the most sought after degree. Okay. Today, computer science alone will not get you a job anywhere. You need to be able to augment it with a specific field, with a domain skill set. You should need to be able to learn something, maybe it healthcare, finance, education, something. You need to have an augmented domain understanding to be able to say that you're an expert in a certain domain and you're going to use technology to be able to add value in that particular domain. That's where opportunities will come. A pure computer science graduate will have lesser opportunities today, again, unless you're absolutely a cutting edge technologist and a architect. In those cases, yes, a pure technology play is good, but having the domain skill set is extremely important right now, is what I feel.
Agree. So understanding of the business along with your ability to program is a very important part. One thing which is also happening, Aarti, right now is we have a lot of professionals who are somewhere in the middle of their career, and the things changing around them, they are finding themselves out of rhythm, right? Few of
Mhm.
them, we had the TCS news, few of them are also finding themselves out of favor in terms of how things are changing, primarily because of the technology and the way the business environment is operating. How do these professionals prepare themselves for these uncertainties?
I think, again, the reading, upskilling, learning is the very critical part about it. Okay. And one way of being able to, so committed to continuous learning, knowing that things are changing, don't stay stuck to this is what my core expertise is and that's what I'm going to stay in. Be open to AI tools, be open to, I mean, I do also see this mindset of, do I rely on AI tools? Do I not rely on AI tools? Do I use them? Do I not use them? Am I being wrong in using them? Of course, if your organization has certain security and constraints, then yes, you have to make sure that you're absolutely using it in the ethical way and what way is needed. But for example, should I use an AI tool to generate an email? Absolutely. Go ahead and try and put it, as long as not you are not putting in confidential information into it. It's good to get a draft out of it. But don't use it blindly. Use it properly. So take the content from that, reword it, reread it, fact check it. Make sure that you have all your facts fact checked according it and use it. So yes, so constant learning, constant upskilling, using these tools to your benefit rather than having a mind block against not using them at all is one part of it. And secondly is also, which I want to give as an advice to certain the young professionals, is working smart is important, not just hard. Okay, hardworking is very important. You need to be hardworking, but you also need to be working smart. So while dedication, hard work are extremely important, working smart is what sets you apart from others. So the goal is not to log long hours. So I used to tell my team members, like, I used to have sometimes debates like, okay, that person is sitting in office from 9 to 6, but why do you value that person's work then when I'm sitting in office from 9 to 11? And I'm saying, if you're doing the same work as that person who's delivering in 9 to 6, you don't have time management skills, or you're wasting your time more. Okay, so it's not about logging long hours. It's about how do you work smartly and more efficiently to be able to deliver more value. And if you deliver more value in lesser time, whatever balance time you have saved for yourself, you can actually invest in making sure that you are constantly reading and upskilling yourself. Otherwise, where will you get the time from, right? If you're spending 9 to 11 just working on official tasks, you're always going to have this challenge of, I don't have time to upskill myself. You need to generate that time for yourself. The company is not going to give you that extra time to be able to upskill yourself. Work smartly, get your work done in shorter amount of time, use tools when possible to be able to help you relieve your work, and use that time to upskill yourself and generate more skill, right? So yes, there is this aspect of, as I said, domain is important, other things are important. Other thing actually I would also say is this is, yes, while these tools and these Gen AI and all these AI tools will make certain tasks redundant, think of it as an opportunity that you can utilize your mind on more strategic thinking stuff. You're not going to do the mundane tasks. Why should I take MOMs of a meeting? Okay, MOMs of a meeting is finally a mundane task. Okay, can I use the MOMs that an AI tool has generated to think about how strategically I can actually act upon these MOMs and work forward? So I'm saving my half an hour, 45 minutes in generating MOMs. Can I use that 45 minutes for actually creating a more strategic point forward?
Amazing. So how do you make these tools and the technology as your partner in accelerating your own growth is the key. The
Correct,
other
correct.
The other part currently we are looking at is on the other aspect of from the parenting perspective, right? So when we see students relying more on technology, using technology to sort of some at point in time, the parents also appear to be little worried about whether the individual is capable of thinking, whether they're really operating, or is the AI really going to ensure that these kids just are get used to the automated answer and not even think about what things are happening. So how do you
Mhm.
see the AI impacting homes?
So, AI impacting homes, I'll give you again a very live example, right? So, my son, okay, he does, I mean, the current college kids, school kids rely a lot on ChatGPT, on different other AI tools, right? So, I was asking him that day, I said, okay, you get a English assignment or you get an assignment, basically an assignment, okay? How do you go about? He said, I relied heavily on the AI tools to be able to complete my assignment. Okay, while normally I would take 5 hours to complete an assignment, I can finish that assignment in 2 hours, 3 hours. Okay, now I said, okay, you've saved 2 hours, fine. But how will you use that tool to make sure that you have not lost your authenticity? Plus, overall, also, um, how are you not just using it blindly? Okay, so we have heard this prompt engineering is a true skill set nowadays. Okay? So he was basically telling me, he's like, I spend 1 hour just generating and crafting my prompt. Okay. I will put all my thoughts into the prompt. Okay, I'll make sure that it's not that I am relying on ChatGPT or the tool to be able to create the answer for me. I'm relying on them to word it in a certain way or a better way such that I can present it better. The thoughts are still mine. The thoughts are not GPT's thoughts. Okay. So I will put down my pointers. I will write up everything in my way, make sure that I have all my thoughts into it. And that is what I will feed into a particular AI tool. I'll get the output. And after I get the output, I spend another 2 hours trying to refine that output to make sure fact checking is done, everything is absolutely accurate, and it is written in a way which the way I would present something. So at the net result of it, the output is not complete, is absolutely nothing which has been generated by the CA tool. It's completely different. But because I used an AI tool to generate that mass content first, it has saved me 2 hours. Okay. And that 2 hours I can probably spend in studying another topic which I do in college. So yes, so while sometimes as parents I am worried that my son is probably stopping to think, when I did hear this answer from him, I realized it's fine. Yes, he's using the tool to generate the content, but he's not stopped thinking. He's not stopped refining it to tune it to the way he needs to write to show authenticity. So that is fine. So I think parents are also learning in the process. The more we, and I think one way of course, understanding it is while, of course, some challenges are real in terms of the time they spend on smartphones and the time they spend on digital devices. While that is real and that is something that is going to take some time to be able to adjust and understand the right balance of things. But on the other side, I think this aspect of when, if you talk to your kids, you will really understand in terms of it's not just blind faith. They're probably actually making a smarter use, the same thing what we talked about, smarter use. They're just not doing hard work. They're doing smarter use of the aspects, and it'll give you maybe a little more comfort on the way and how they're using the tools.
Awesome. One specific advice to the young girls who are right now looking at building their professional career. What should be the top three priorities for them now?
So, actually, in terms of couple of aspects, I would say actually, I mean, I know you talked about top three, but maybe I'll talk of one or two on the professional, couple of them on personal.
Right.
But yes, on professional side, the first point we have already covered, which I wanted to cover, which is work smart, not just hard. Absolutely important.
Yes.
Second point also we have already covered is committing to continuous learning. You can't stop learning, you will be left behind. You have to keep going. The next thing, very important, which I think is advocate for yourself. Okay. Especially in our homes as youngsters, we're never encouraged to talk about our achievements. But in the professional world, visibility really does matter. And especially as girls, I think it hampers us a lot more, where we don't strictly, we expect the other person to say that my hard work or my work should talk for itself. It doesn't always happen. Okay. Speak up, communicate your accomplishments, take credit where it is absolutely required. Take that credit and make sure your contributions are recognized. Okay, so that is extremely important, I think. This is one thing I'd seen in some TED talk or something, right? If you have a job description or an open opportunity, a girl won't apply to that opportunity till she meets 90% of the criteria. A guy will apply even if it's 50% of the criteria because they say, okay, let me give it a shot, let me talk. I'm sure I will go ahead and do it. So talk up. And another reason why probably, I mean, yes, you do have pay disparity sometimes in the workplace for male and female. Not in all workplaces, I'll say in some places. One of the reasons I feel is we don't ask, we don't demand for what we are worth. So please speak up for your accomplishments. Okay. The next point I want to talk about is seeking and maintaining strong mentorships. Extremely important, especially in your first decade, 2 decades of your career. Have strong mentors. Mentor is not a person who gives you praise, it's a person who challenges you to grow. They basically offer you honest, constructive feedback and genuinely wants you to succeed. So make sure you have those mentors in your life and rely on those mentors. And the last point I would talk on the professional side before I move to the personal is building and nurturing your network. Extremely important. As your career progresses, many of the best opportunities will come through your network. Okay, senior roles will never be hired without a strong recommendation. Every
Great.
role I have backed after my first job after college has only been through network. Okay, so be intentional about your networking. Make sure you maintain your network. Just connecting to somebody does not help. How do you continue to maintain that relationship? And I know girls generally tend to get busy as they move to their middle part of their career, but networking does not need to happen over a drink or on the golf course. It can very much happen in your workplace and professional events. So make sure that you have to take out that time to be able to spend talking and understanding and networking with people. So that is on the professional side, I would like to say. Do you want me to cover the personal side right now, or there are a couple of points very important, I feel? So, in terms of the personal side, again, if you're talking specifically of girls, first very important part I will say, take charge of your finances. Okay, you don't, it can be, money is very overwhelming, but financial awareness is extremely important. Okay, you don't have to be an expert on trading or investing or anything of that sort. Start with just understanding your income, understanding what the breakup is of the income, creating a realistic monthly budget, reviewing it regularly, adjusting it as needed, and take advice where needed for being able to do very informed investment decisions. But make sure you get yourself into financial awareness, financial planning, right? Very in start of your career. Financial confidence can be empowering, believe me. Later on, when you get a stage in life where money works for you, you are not working for money. That's the most empowering phase that you feel at that point of time. Okay. Second part, prioritize yourself. It's okay. It's just it's a necessity actually. It's not just okay to invest in yourself. Allocate some time, some portion of your income to make sure that you have self-care for yourself, whether it is shopping, it is going and pursuing some hobbies, it's a day at the spa, it is whatever aspects of it, right? When you are happy and you are recharged, you keep people in your workplace and your home also happier. Okay, because a girl basically, especially as they grow into their middle part of their career, they forget themselves. They either are playing the role of an employee, of a partner, of a mother, of a daughter-in-law, anything. They forget themselves. So it's fine to create those spaces where you can be you and you can enjoy what you like. So it's okay, don't feel guilty about that. Okay, the third thing I would say on the personal side is building a strong support system. Okay, you don't have to do everything, and you shouldn't have to either. Okay, asking for help is not a weakness, it is absolutely a sign of strength. I mean, you are multitasker, you don't have to be a superhero. You are a strong woman, you don't have to be a superhero. So while managing family life and other aspects, share responsibilities with your partner. It's okay if they do the laundry. Lean on your parents and in-laws and surround yourselves with people who can really support and uplift you. Support systems are no longer a luxury, it is a necessity right now. So you need your support systems. And the last very important part I will say is own your choices. Don't have guilt. Don't carry guilt with you. Okay. Whether you decide to pursue a career or whether you decide to be a stay-at-home mom, never feel guilty about the conscious decision that you have made based on your what aligns with your values and circumstances, right? Guilt basically just does nothing except drains your energy. And when you try to overcompensate for your choice, okay, it'll actually bring down your peace of mind and undermines your confidence. So stand by your decisions with pride. Okay, your child may not understand. He may cry initially, saying that, "Mama, you're not spending time with me in the day. You only have time with me in the evening." Okay, but believe me, that same kid 10 years later, or when they hit their teens, they understand that it's okay to have a strong mom. It's fine that your mother is working. They are proud of what you are being able to achieve. Similarly, for a stay-at-home mom, own your choice. It's fine if you've decided to take it, own it. Don't ever live with guilt, whether you're a working mom or a stay-at-home mom. Don't do that. So this is primarily, in a nutshell, to talk about the professional side. As I said, there were 4 points. Basically, work smart, not just hard. Commit to continuous learning. Advocate for yourself. Seek and maintain strong mentorships and build and nurture your network. On the personal side, take charge of your finances, and very important. Prioritize yourself, build a strong support system, and own your choices without guilt. That's primarily what I would like to cover.
Thank you so much, Aarti, for this candid feedback to everyone who is listening, and the insights would make tremendous difference to people who are listening this. Thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute privilege for us to having you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it was a privilege to talk to you, and absolutely looking forward to meeting you in person next time I'm in India for sure.